how long is it going to be able to transmit before it's been put out of action or goes out of contact?
That depends entirely on what it is that finally kills Huygens. And there are probably 6 ways in which the probe could finally die. It could be damaged on landing, for example, because we don't know the nature of the surface. It's difficult to design for every possible scenario. It might freeze to death. The temperature is something like minus 180 degrees centigrade. And though the probe is very well thermally insulated, that insulation might be damaged during the landing. It might run out of power. The probe is powered by onboard batteries, which are in fact designed to give us up to 30 minutes on the surface. We could be very unlucky, and we could end up on the surface at an extreme angle. If that is more than 60 degrees, then the radio link from the probe on the surface to the Cassini orbiter, which is passing overhead, that could be lost. If we end up on a liquid surface, it's possible that there might be quite large waves, and the waves could inundate the probe. However, if it survives all of those dreadful hazards, we do know that eventually that radio link, which I mentioned before, which will relay the data via Cassini back to the Earth, that will only last for about 30 minutes before the orbiter finally disappears over the horizon.
So have only got half an hour. But one thing strikes me, Cassini is actually going around Titan, and it'll come back. Now, is there any chance that Huygens can survive in active mode for long enough to recontact Cassini when it comes back and put the link back?
Unfortunately, there's no chance at all. Cassini's orbit around Saturn is something like 40 days long. So it'll be 40 days before the orbiter reappears above Titan, and there's just no chance that the probe can survive for that long in that very harsh environment.
Well, now, what about possible life on Titan? Any chance?
Well, people have speculated on that many, many years ago. In fact, Huygens himself, in his book, and we see the frontispiece here, The Celestial Worlds Discovered, which he published in the late 17th century, he speculated on the existence of planets, of plants, animals, and even humans on the planets of the solar system, the outer solar system. But we now know that the extreme temperature, the extreme cold, and the lack of oxygen means that the likelihood of life is really, I would say, negligible.
It's a pity. They're fascinating all the same. Now, it's a very complex probe. What do you think are the reasonable chances of success?
You're right, it is very complex, and the hazards are very extreme, as is usually the case with space missions. But the reason that, on the whole, they are so successful is because of the enormous amount of testing that the spacecraft is put through before being launched. And Cassini is no different in this case. It's been shaken, it's been baked, it's been frozen, it's been spun around on a centrifuge, and it survived all of these tests. It's also gone through a special test. In this case, this was the Huygens probe, or rather a model of it, which was taken up on a high-altitude balloon here on Earth and then released in an attempt to simulate some of the events that will take place as it descends through Titan's atmosphere. And it came through this test, all of the parachutes worked well, the front shield was released, and it landed, in fact, on an icy surface.
Well, let's hope it all goes well. It will take some time to evaluate the results, won't it?
It will indeed, though we get the results in late 2004 and we'll produce a first analysis fairly quickly. It'll be several years before all of the data is completely analysed and all of the last details squeezed out of it.
And finally, what's the actual landing date on Titan?
It's November the 27th, 2004.
Will this be a scene like this drawing by Richard Mullen, or shall we do something entirely different? We can only wait and see. And on that evening, John, we'll see you on the sky at night. Thank you very much. Don't forget, if you want the latest astronomical information, then dial up our information line, 0891 800 330, or CFAX page 620. And also, it's newsletter time. If you want your newsletter, then send your stamped addressed envelope to newsletter number 67, The Sky at Night, BBC TV, London W12 7TS. And when I come back next month, I'll be talking about instruments of change, new equipment used with our great telescopes. So until then, good night.